Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the fear of commitment. If you get a lot of value out of these videos, please visit www.personaldevelopmentschool for more free content, worksheets, workbooks, and also like, share, and subscribe to our channel so that we can stay connected. So today, I want to just first and foremost get us to note that when we talk about, or in society, or when we hear people talk about, or we mention with our partners that somebody has a fear of commitment, we do ourselves a tremendous injustice by not isolating what that fear is, by not asking, not inquiring further. So fear of commitment isn't just a fear of commitment itself. It's fear of the meaning that we gave to commitment. Okay, so what does this mean? Let's say that I make commitment mean that I give up my freedom. I associate more positive than negative emotional responses. I have more negative investments than, I have more negative than positive investments in commitment due to specific pieces of meaning that I give to it that is creating that fear in the first place. So let's say I think, oh, relationships are nice, and I give that a 3 out of 10 emotional weight. But I think, oh my gosh, but they take my freedom, and I have to do all these things, and I have to take somebody else's needs into account. It gives me a headache thinking about, oh, it feels overwhelming, and I start becoming afraid. Well, let's say that takes up, -5 of emotional value. Then obviously I see more negatives than positives according to the meaning that I've given to things, according to my interpretations about what commitment is, and then I fear it because the brain is wired to avoid things we associate with pain and to seek out things we associate with pleasure. So as opposed to just thinking we fear commitment, let's get specific and isolate what those fears are made up of. So a lot of things that I hear people talk about are things like, I fear commitment, and when we break it down, it's because I actually fear abandonment. And I was abandoned in childhood by a parent or caregiver, physically or emotionally. And so I don't want to invest in myself or give too much of myself to another person because that might happen to me again. And I'm not interested in going through that because it'll be too painful. So when we see it like that, now, if it's our fear of commitment, which is really that fear of abandonment, we can work with that fear of abandonment. And if it's our partner's fear of commitment, or somebody we love's fear of commitment, somebody we care about, we can actually talk to them and be supportive and compassionate about them as opposed to judging them as a commitment phobe, putting this sort of post-it note on them about who they are and responding to them through that filter of perception we're carrying about them. Other things I hear are, in childhood, I had a parent who betrayed the other parent after years and years of marriage, and it split up the family. And so I don't want to give too much of myself or commit too completely to a long-term relationship because that could happen, and I'm not interested in being on the recipient end of that myself. I fear betrayal, or I fear being cheated on, or I fear whatever it might be in that case. And again, once we can get specific and isolate what that underlying fear is that we are projecting onto commitment, then we can work on that underlying fear and we're empowered to create change. Anything we fear, we want to get as specific about as possible. So we just covered the first couple points. It's the meaning we give to things, and we want to get specific. What was broken in the past? What commitment was broken in the past? Now, for some people, it really is like a feeling of infringement on their freedom, but even that has deeper roots. Even that, people who I see who are so afraid of their freedom being taken away often lived in a home in childhood where it was extremely controlling, or they often felt invaded, or that they had no privacy, that their boundaries weren't respected if given whatsoever. Like there almost wasn't space held for their boundaries, and they weren't allowed to do anything. And they grew up, they became an adult, and they don't want to live back in that prison again. And so they're associating commitment with going back to that. And in that case, same thing. Dig into it, pick it apart, work through the underlying pain that's stored that we project onto commitment, as opposed to just smacking a surface label on something and saying, oh, I fear commitment in general. It can be very disempowering for ourselves, and it can be a disempowering way of labeling or judging somebody else, especially somebody we care about. So what do we do about this? So if this is you, or this is somebody you care about, if it's you, share this fear, bring it to the surface, talk about it with the people you care about. Vulnerability is a tremendous first step to creating change, because everybody wants to support us when we're vulnerable, and people have a much harder time supporting us when we're just kind of lashing out. So if you say, hey, I'm afraid of commitment because of X, Y, and Z, somebody's actually going to support you in that and respect that and maybe work with you on it, and connect through it, as opposed to you say, oh, I don't like commitment, and the person just dismisses you and makes you feel bad about what you're going through. Because this in and of itself is a disempowering fear, but is creating some kind of interruption to life. Again, I don't want to say interruption to life. That's not like fair wording, because some people just seriously don't want to settle down into relationships, and for many other reasons that don't have to do with fear. That they want to grow or focus on themselves or heal or take some time after a divorce or whatever it might be, and power to you for all of those reasons. But I'm specifically meaning that if you have a fear of commitment and it breaks up relationships, and then you regret that it broke up relationships because you really did want to sort of commit to that person, if there's some pain involved here for you or for somebody else, this is specifically what I'm referring to. So get specific, be vulnerable, because you're gonna understand yourself. You hold space for yourself through your vulnerability, and you also hold space for somebody else to connect to you. And if this is for somebody that you care about, ask them, dig with them, ask them to be vulnerable, and hold space for that. I do notice a small correlation as a general rule. I am stereotyping a little bit, but as a general rule, I do find a small correlation between people who are afraid of commitment and people who also have a really hard time with judgment, criticism, shame. And I don't mean I don't think anybody particularly loves right off the bat without doing some self-work and using criticism as a tool to open yourself further. I don't think people are naturally inclined to love criticism, because as children, when we were criticized, what came after was usually some form of punishment. So our brains got that nice little association wired in there. And when we get criticized, we feel like we have to protect ourselves or defend or attack back right away, because that's been the conditioned pattern of behavior most of us have often had. So I mean that in this case, oftentimes people who fear commitment often have a huge disdain towards criticism. Like a 9 or 10 out of 10 can't take it, don't handle it well, can't really go inside themselves and check to see if what somebody's saying has any value or could be of value to them. Usually there's a really strong emotional charge. So we want to go out of our way to hold space and ask somebody to be very vulnerable or dig in the most kind and approachable way possible as to what are you actually fearing? What about commitment do you fear? What meaning do you give to commitment that causes a negative emotional response? Those are the types of questions you want to be asking. And here are 2 things we can do to work through the fear of commitment if it's us. So number 1, we want to look for the opposite. So if we, let's say, have that fear of abandonment, we're seeing the world through that perceptual filter of that we will be abandoned at some point in a relationship if we commit, or we will be betrayed at some point, or our freedom will be taken. So we see it that way, and we assume through our subconscious mind, this isn't necessarily conscious and intentional and well thought out, but because of a pattern we experienced that impacted us so deeply, we now see the world through that filter of that subconscious imprint that was made. So we now go into the world and we assume that everybody will be abandoned or betrayed at some point. So we want to bring this to the surface, and we want to question it. Can I seriously, surely know that if I commit this worst case scenario that my subconscious mind has stored because of something I saw a long time ago, can I really know that that will happen to me? Can I really know that I'll be betrayed, abandoned, or whatever other painful meaning we've given to commitment? Question it. And look for proof of the other side. What are reasons that this person that you're considering committing to might not do that to you? What qualities or character traits you have that would make you a good match, or it would make you connect and be able to move through problems and challenges? Or what character traits do you have that you'd be able to help yourself move through challenges, or that you'd be okay no matter what happens? Or, you know, who do you know that hasn't been abandoned or betrayed, or their freedom hasn't been taken and it was so painful? So go through and actually look for proof outside of this stored perception that you've been carrying, because it actually equilibrates it. When you bring proof in of the opposite and you do enough of it, that repetition plus emotion creates a new program in your subconscious, because that's how our subconscious is programmed, through repetition plus emotion. So we want to dig into that. We want to look for proof outside of these unconscious projections that we're making based on negative experiences we had in the past. And lastly, make peace with your worst case scenario. Like, you know, what is worse? Being in fear of commitment and never allowing yourself to open fully and love fully and experience fully. And obviously I'm making this fear of commitment specific to like relationships, but it could seriously be commitment to a job or commitment to moving somewhere or any of these different things, of course. But in the case of a relationship, let's say, what's worse? Never allowing yourself to fully experience and open yourself and deeply love and connect, or doing that and you know, garnishing all the riches from that and the fulfillment from that and the beauty in that, and then one day having your worst case scenario actually happen to you. Would you rather live and limit yourself altogether, or live and have the worst case scenario happen, if it were a possibility, which of course, again, would be a tiny, tiny possibility, if any. And then you want to make peace with that. What if that does happen? What if I do get abandoned? How would I be okay? What if I do get betrayed in some way? How would I be okay? You know, can I trust myself? So much of our fear of commitment as well is also because we don't trust ourselves enough to be able to climb out of the challenges that different aspects of our life can bring. And so you want to ask yourself, whether it's that commitment to a job or a relationship or a move or whatever else it might be, can you trust yourself that if your worst case scenario happens, that you'd still be okay, that you could cope, and that you could move through it and heal? And so you want to make peace with that worst case scenario. You want to make it fully conscious, whatever this deep, deep fear is, and then think it through. What would I do? How would I adapt? How could I be okay? And what you actually do is you take this subconscious program that's kind of running and that you're ruminating around, and by making it fully conscious and setting it to rest, you actually do a great service to this sort of energy, this thought and emotional spinning that's taking up real estate in your subconscious mind to some degree. So again, make the meaning really clear that you give to commitment. Okay, what is the deep fear and where does this come from? And get as specific as possible about what happened in the past that has created this. Share it with yourself and share it with others who you think can be supportive to you or that might be a part of this commitment process. And equilibrate it, like question it, and then look for proof of otherwise. Is there a reason this might not be true? What are those reasons? What might they be? And that helps to, again, just sort of balance out some of that emotional investment that we're giving to only one side of a story without seeing the totality of truth. And lastly, make peace with the worst case scenario. What if it did happen? And would I be okay? Can I work? Maybe if I'm so afraid that I would be so broken, you know, what do I need to empower in myself so that I never get to that point? What do I have to start doing for myself to make myself feel supported enough intrinsically so that I can trust myself? You know, that in and of itself is feedback if you feel so afraid of something. Obviously, there's parts of you that need to be worked on and worked through. So this is just a short video about fear of commitment. I'm sure there's more we could go into about self-trust and all these different sort of breakdowns we could do, but we will be adding more videos in the future, and please stay connected. Please like these videos, share them, subscribe to our channel, and ask any questions. Like if you have a video you want to see, or you have a comment about this video, or you have a question, ask, stay connected. We super appreciate it. And please feel free to visit www.personaldevelopmentschool.com.